I think we're live.
Okay, awesome. Let me get this tweet out here.
I will grab a link for us. And we can trim this little bit in post.
Yeah.
We're good.
Sweet. Yeah, I'm gonna tweet it out and say people can tweet at us with questions they have. Reply to this tweet with questions you want to see.
Alrighty, so this will just be a little bit slow. I can see we've already got people filtering in
Okay, so
as we talk about the last 5 years of DigiByte coin. And look,
okay, I just tweeted. Let me retweet that.
yeah. Whoo! Alrighty.
Okay, cool. Is there a chat section on here?
Yeah, on the are you
Okay.
meaning specifically in YouTube or?
Yeah, on the YouTube channel.
Yeah. So that should be underneath. Welcome, Lisa.
Sweet. Hello, everyone. Thanks for stopping in. We'll just give it just a couple minutes so we can get a few more people in there.
Before we get into all the really juicy things, it's kind of this is cool. When was our last one actually that we did? Now, if I'm
It was a while ago. That's for
June
sure.
June the 16th, I think. Wow.
It was, what day was it?
So I like we were talking earlier on in the week, and I was talking about doing a bit of like an AMA because the last one that I did was probably I think it was around about 12 months ago now. But the Reddit community has a reputation that precedes them. Is probably the nicest way of us being able to describe that. But at the same time, I still remember so you'd done an AMA probably I think it was around about the time, like slightly before the T4I, or Marie actually was slightly after the Tick for Integrity Challenge. How much of that do you actually remember? Because that was specifically what got me involved in, like, really into DigiByte, more than just knowing about it and having mined it previously. So,
Yeah, I remember doing that one. It's crazy to think that was what, like a year and a half ago now? Time just flies. Like 2018 just flew by. It's been incredible. Yeah, it's been yeah, pretty wild. But I mean, it's been an amazing year. I know everybody has kind of got down on the price, and I'm not going to say price isn't important, but for those that are just joining, to put it in perspective, at this time 2 or 3 years ago, well, 3 years ago, I think our market cap was like $100,000. Now it's over 100 million. So, we have shown steady, consistent growth, and we're going to continue to do that, moving into the future. So, but yeah, going back to your question about Reddit, I think a lot of people know now I'm not a huge Reddit fan. I think there's a lot of negativity and toxicity on that platform that you don't see in other places. But hey, everyone's entitled to their opinion.
I like it though because it's nice and you've got like all of the threaded kind of responses and the questions and things like that. So that's what got me interested in specifically contributing into DigiByte. So we often get asked, what can I do? What's something that an average Joe who can't program, an average Joe, hey, that's me, an average Joe can kind of do that can help out, right? And so that was one of the things was I realized, look, I'm not a programmer either, and I can't sit down and actually do the coding, but there are certain questions that I can help answer, and I was writing guides at the time for mining. So if anybody has something that they are good at, specifically in their normal day-to-day life. That's also the same sort of thing that I would encourage them to apply to DigiByte. So if you're really good at writing technical documentation, come and write some technical documentation. If you're really good at herding kittens, then we've got a really big community that will fit you perfectly. So if you are any of those kind of things, just do what you do best, or do what you enjoy, because that's why we're all here, because we really enjoy giving of our time to do that sort of thing, right? Like,
yeah, like, you know, that's the incredible part. And I want to thank you for all you've done, you know, and all the help you've contributed over the last few years here. And it actually makes me feel good to realize that Reddit AMA actually did good. But I also want to thank everybody that's listening or watching this video later. You know, yes, I started DigiByte 5 years ago today. But, you know, at the end of the day, this is about community and decentralization. The beautiful thing about DigiByte is there is no central company, there is no central entity. Despite what a lot of people say, no, I'm not the CEO, I'm not the president of DigiByte. If I was hit by a bus tomorrow, like, everything would still go on, which I'm not hoping that happens.
Yeah, let's hope we don't have that happen. But
you know, that's the cool part is it really takes, you know, 2 computers in a basement to keep DigiByte going into infinity. Like, it's you know, yes, we've had over 250,000 full nodes installed on the network over the last, you know, year and a half.
Yeah.
But the beauty is there's really no overhead to keep the network running. It's really a community of people all over the world, and it's truly humbling and amazing to see how much it's grown. You know, I can tell you right now, here where we are in 2019, the community is bigger, more vibrant, and more excited than ever.
Yeah.
And that's absolutely fantastic. So I'm really looking forward to what 2019 has to bring here.
Yeah, I mean, maybe, so we've got a couple of interesting questions starting to come in specifically on the YouTube chat, but maybe I wonder if it's worth having a, like kicking this off with a bit of a look at the history. So I remember what things were like in 2014, and I remember there was a lot of coins that were just launched, and the founder would often just mine the heck out of it for the first kind of couple days, weeks, and dump and run off. Now, DigiByte actually had a bit of a countdown. Do you want to sort of talk a bit about that and about some of the early days? Because I also remember there was some fun around getting it up on GitHub and stuff.
Yeah, no, you know, after seeing how some of the projects had launched, and just like you said, the founders would basically go in and pre-mine a bunch of stuff. I was like, hey, why don't we have a countdown timer that starts like a week? It was like a week and a half out. And we'll actually launch the blockchain at a specific time. And to my recollection, I think we were the first ones to do that. And the idea for that was to give it as fair of a launch as possible and to also get as many people involved with the launch. So at the time, you know, ahead of the launch, we announced, hey, there's going to be a 0.5% pre-mine. Of that 0.5%, half was to be given away to new users in the first, I think it was like the first week and a half. The other 0.25% was used to pay for the first Android, iOS wallets, and some other developer skills that I didn't have at the time. I got the initial Qt client on Windows compiled, but I was having a heck of a time getting the Android wallet and the OS X wallet, so we had to bring in some help on that.
Yeah.
But effectively, the launch of DigiByte, I would argue, is one of the fairest launches in the history of a cryptocurrency. And I think that reflects in the community today. As I've had the privilege of traveling around the world, I've talked to a lot of people that are like, you know, hey, I remember when you launched, you know, just because I think there was like 20,000 addresses that we sent DigiBytes to in the beginning. So
it was ridiculous. Do you remember that spreadsheet that you had for a little while?
Yeah.
You kept a list of all of them. It was incredible.
Yeah. I mean, obviously, it's all still on the blockchain. So, and you can actually see some of the threads on Bitcoin Talk still. Some of the original giveaway threads. They're referenced there on page 1 of Bitcoin Talk. You can go down there and you can see the history live. You know, it's kind of cool. So, it was a really incredible time. I would argue that this day 5 years ago was probably the most stressful day of my life. You know, at the time I was living in my home state of Idaho. I literally was testing it in my garage. And the reason was it was 20 below zero in January there. So it was free cooling for, you know, at the time,
with
GPUs
for
mining. Because at the time I had a little bit of a mining farm. I was mining several different cryptocurrencies simultaneously in 2012 and 2013. And as I was mining them, I'm like, hey, I think there can be a better way of doing this and making a better system. And obviously that system culminated with the launch of DigiByte. And, one thing a lot of people don't know is, and, we've got criticism over the last 5 years is, well, why didn't you just go make a new one? Why didn't you do like, I don't want to name names. I want to keep this stream positive here. But, some of my peers in this industry have had,
some of them are on their fourth blockchain.
Yeah. There's some of them are on their fourth blockchain. And I would argue DigiByte today is completely different than the DigiByte that launched 5 years ago.
Yep.
We've effectively had now 6 different versions that are, in a lot of ways, function as different blockchains. Yes, it's backwards compatible, but we've continued to update and improve. And I would argue we have the most advanced blockchain in the world today, with the most steadfast, proven, secure setup. So, and over the last 5 years, there's been a lot of things that we've done and pioneered that, frankly, we were ahead of our time. Whether it was with international trade, supply chain, video gaming, a whole number of stuff. You're just now seeing that these applications are, coming and being considered mainstream. So I still think we have a ways to go. I think the biggest thing that I would say we could all focus on in 2019 is just education. You're talking less than 1% of the planet is even involved in blockchain and cryptocurrency still. Yeah. And to this day, I get in a car and I ask my Lyft or Uber driver about, hey, what do you think about blockchain? And they're like, oh, well, it's a Ponzi scheme. It's, used to buy drugs. And people just still don't understand the potential impact of this technology. So, one of the things that I tell people is the best thing you can do with your friends and family, just sit down, have them download the DigiByte mobile wallet, send them 5 cents, just show them how it works. And then it amazes me. And one of my favorite things to do is when you get and you see that aha moment, when it clicks for somebody finally.
Yeah. You get that little rush yourself as well, right? Like, this is cool. I'm showing them, and they're understanding and they're believing now. Just because they've, like you say, you've sat down with them and you've sent them 5 or 10 cents worth of DigiByte.
Yeah, no, it's incredible. And then you take people that are Bitcoin maximalists or have never tried DigiByte and they're used to how slow Bitcoin is, and then they use it for the first time and they're like, wow, this is incredible. And that's why I challenge people, just send a transaction for yourself and realize that this is a super decentralized system. Yeah. So that's it's exciting times. Like 2019. I saw a question here, like, what are your top 5 focuses for 2019? Well, right now, I'm in the process of writing this book called Blockchain 2035, because one of the hardest and most frustrating things for me over the past, especially 24 months, is I've literally been bombarded with thousands of messages on LinkedIn, on Telegram, on Twitter. Yeah. And it's just not humanly possible for me to respond to every single individual. And I've had, thousands of brilliant ideas thrown at me by people wanting to build and use blockchain for various purposes. And, I've also basically sat down with, which I learned some hard lessons about how, corporations work, but I've literally sat down with the biggest companies in the world, starting in 2015, 2016, trying to explain blockchain. And what I finally decided is I need to write a book so that way I can get it out there and I can give all the information to the world at once and all the crazy ideas that have been rattling around in my brain over the last 7 years and just put it out there. Yeah. So that's actually what I've been doing the last, I actually started writing in August. Here we are, it's January, we're like 260 pages in. And even 260 pages in, I'm like, hey, I got more. There's more. Because there's just so much cool stuff. Like, we're really talking about a complete, change and revolution in the internet today. That's why the name of the book is Blockchain 2035, the digital DNA of Internet 3.0. And then obviously, if you don't know, for those watching, blockchain, or the year 2035 is when the last DigiByte is scheduled to be minted. And don't worry, when that happens, the blockchain still goes on. Everything's fine. We actually tested that in 2015 because we were curious what'll happen when it ends. Well, I want to get that out here hopefully in the next month or two. It's taken a lot more. I've never done a book before, but that obviously it's a lot of work.
But the thing is once you get started though, like I'm presuming you're going to be a lot like me. I was having a podcast with the guys from Crypto Pulse a couple of days ago, also celebrating the 5th anniversary, and they were curious specifically about digi-assets, and they were asking a bit about that and about what's happening, what sort of stuff you can do with it. And so we start discussing things, and particularly because they're in the entertainment business with music and things like that, they were talking about ticket scalping. And so we start discussing about how digi-assets and using the DigiByte blockchain could completely solve that whole entire industry, could give you confidence that you're buying a ticket that hasn't gone through and been sold and resold and resold and resold, or that you're actually just buying a ticket and not some dude buying one and then trying to sell it to 3 different people all at once, and you all show up to the event with the same ticket that's already been used 3 times previously. So that sort of once you get started, once you start to understand the implications and the possibilities, I'm presuming that's also sort of why you keep going with your book, because you're like, oh, this is a great idea. Look at this extra thing that we can do with the blockchain and how it can help people, and I've got to tell people about it. Am I kind of on the right path there with?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's what I'm trying to do is over the years, I've had so many great, people come to me with unique and innovative ideas, but they're like, how do I build it? They just don't know how. And so overall, 2019 for DigiByte, yes, we're working on core protocol improvements. Yes, we're working on a new algorithm in hard fork and some other stuff. But overwhelmingly, the biggest impact that's going to be had on the ecosystem and community will be digi-assets. Because just like you said, the applications of digi-assets from whether it's not issuing shares in a company, which obviously if we do that, we want to do that in a regulated manner, just for anybody that's might be listening. But ticket scalping, healthcare records, you name it. There's we go through a whole wide range of applications in the book. What we're also trying to do is analyze and sit back where other projects have had pain points. Obviously Ethereum is kind of known for the first smart contracts platform, but it's my belief a lot of the ways they went about architecting it is not very efficient from a computer science standpoint.
Yeah.
And it just can't scale. So what we're trying to do with digi-assets is create a secondary protocol and platform layer on top of DigiByte that actually does scale and isn't going to get bottlenecked when several different groups and organizations start using it and scaling it at mass for commercial products.
Yeah.
Now a lot of people don't know. We actually a couple of the other core developers and I actually sent digi-assets transactions as early as fall of 2017. That's how long we've actually been working on this and testing this out. We've actually had a lot of the pieces for a while, but we wanted to make sure that when we did finally launch it to the public, that it was reliable, scalable, and secure.
Yeah.
So, that's kind of been our focus. So
what I'll do real quick for some of the people here, they'll see it in the live stream, but I guess you won't see it. But here's a quick little picture of Jared, and he's analyzing the actual underlying protocols and the structure of a transaction for digi-assets. And so you can see byte by byte going through, and it's pretty cool. So that's just your Twitter display picture.
Oh yeah, okay, cool. Yeah. No, literally going bit by bit and byte by byte, because a lot of earlier systems like colored coins, etc. It was a great start, but there are several places where significant scalability and efficiency improvements can be made, and it literally comes to doing it at the bit by bit level, the ones and zeros, because when you have that super efficiency, you can do a lot more.
Yeah.
So
well, because that's one of the things as well, I suppose. So obviously, Ethereum was birthed out of a frustration with Bitcoin, much in the same way that DigiByte has also been birthed thinking more into the future. So there's basically, I mean, for all of the viewers and all of our listeners here, there's definitely 2 different ways of doing it. So with Ethereum, they've gone for Turing complete, and the idea being you can effectively run a computer on the blockchain. So digi-assets is a little bit different. Do you want to talk a little bit about those?
Yeah. One of the things that I really feel like I'm frustrated, and I go into this in the book, You know, blockchain itself is really the continuation and advancement of the last 50 years of cryptographic research. And because of the distribution and the way a blockchain handles private keys, you can actually do some really cool stuff that doesn't necessarily need to even be on chain.
Yeah.
And what I mean by that is the private keys, the same private keys that you hold in your DigiByte wallet, those keys can be used to lock and unlock your healthcare records. They could be used to lock and unlock your front door. They could be used to turn your lights on. They could be used to start your car. They could be used to secure all the IoT devices in your own home. And, you know, part of the theme for the book and Digi Assets is you should be able to control your data and your privacy. And the tools to do that exist through the distribution of public-private key cryptography on a blockchain like DigiByte. So there's a lot of architecture and applications, and it's almost a rethinking of the way that we build stuff on top of a blockchain. And that's one of the things we're trying to get across in the book. But obviously the book is going into explain a lot about Digi Assets and a lot about this concept of not only scaling applications that incorporate blockchain technology, but, you know, you basically being in charge and controlling your own privacy and your own data.
Yeah.
So yeah, there's just a lot of exciting stuff you can do, but there's some surprisingly a lot of these cryptographic tricks and niches and things we're reading about now and just experimenting with, like zero knowledge proofs. You know, a lot of this stuff was around in the 90s, some of it even the 80s. And it's kind of being rediscovered. So there's actually some more advanced cryptographic mechanisms and tools that we can actually include and put into DigiByte to make things scale, you know, much more exponentially than before. Also, because of the way that we're working on efficiently doing stuff, you also make it more secure and rigid. So when people say Ethereum is Turing complete, I would argue that what we have in mind for Digi Assets would also be Turing complete in terms of having much more flexibility in what you can do. But, you know, I don't want to turn this into like a criticism of Ethereum, but let's just say we're working on improving things, and we've had time, just like we did with Bitcoin. We had time to sit back, analyze the flaws, analyze the weaknesses, and improve on those. And, you know, learn from others' issues, and then implement solutions on top of DigiByte. So that's the goal, you know, just to keep refining and making it better and better each day and each year.
So it's kind of a tough sort of balance to have to hold, because on the one hand, it's nice to be the first, or to be fast, or to be the quickest to something and get that little kind of pat on the back and wear that little badge. But on the other side, there's also benefit to hindsight, and to be able to look back and kind of see, well, this is how they did it, and that was okay. But then you can kind of also look over here and go, this is a much better way of doing it. And I also wanted to kind of just quickly talk about, you mentioned earlier signing in and out of your house. I have here a Raspberry Pi, and so I actually did that. I went out and I bought a small little
servo?
Yeah, basically. And so I wired it through the door at our old place and tested it out. And so using DigiID and a local web server, I was basically able to, from anywhere in the world, lock and unlock my front door. So the idea being, what I can do is using a few extra little tricks through my Android cell phone, have it so that as soon as I sign into the Wi-Fi, it'll fire up the DigiByte app for me, and all I have to do is just push my finger on the back of it to authorize it, and it'll unlock the front door, and there's nothing else that I have to do. It's absolutely amazing, that kind of a technology. And it's built with the help of the DigiByte app. It's fantastic. So there are many other things.
Cool. Yeah, I mean, we can replace passwords, we can do a lot of things, but the important thing is, at the end of the day, you know, you control your own destiny, your own future. And I would say, you know, when I get asked, what is the biggest challenge facing the crypto world right now, and blockchain technology in general, and I would actually say it's key management. You know, this whole notion that you are responsible for your wallet keys, for backing them up. You know, people are just so used to, if they get locked out of their bank account or something happens, they just call up the bank and they change it. So that notion, that hurdle, I think is one of the biggest obstacles that we're facing is key management. How do we ensure security? And I mean, it's obviously secure, but how do we educate people to take the responsibility? And to me, that's one of the biggest hurdles that we're facing right now. Because, you know, you see this shift with all these custodial services, this custodial management, you know, like Coinbase Custody and BitGo, these other service providers where, you know, basically they control their your keys for you, which I think there is a place in the market for those services.
I think it also, in some ways, kind of a little bit defeats the purpose. The whole idea being that you are self-sovereign over your own funds, over your own keys, over your own assets, to then take that sovereignty and the ability to basically seize those and give that to somebody else. It kind of, like, I completely understand why people would do it, because it's easy to give it to someone else. It's not your problem, not your circus, not your monkeys. But at the same time, the idea that you own your private keys and you're the only one with them basically means that there's nobody else that can take them from you. Nobody else can seize them. Like, so we saw, I think it was in Greece a couple years ago, where basically they shut down all the ATMs and things, and they basically said, no more, you're not allowed to withdraw your money, and we're claiming it. It's ours. You can't do that if you have your own private keys. Nobody can stop you from either receiving or sending. You can't be stopped. So I completely understand what you mean, though, about it's not so much about the security of the platform, but more the security of the way that users behave and what they do with that sort of thing. Unfortunately, I was actually reading on a different subreddit, I think it was Myriad Coin yesterday, and somebody had gone and downloaded some software, and they hadn't encrypted their own keys on their own desktop wallet. And so their funds got sucked out, because they were using that as their main PC, I'm presuming going into some shady sites and downloading some shady software, and all of a sudden now they're missing out. It was only like $10 worth, but it's still, that's what happens basically, I guess, is the security is less around the actual, the platform and the protocol, and more around what users do. And I think
user behavior. I mean, and that's just something, you know, let's be honest, here we are. You know, Bitcoin's 10-year anniversary was on January 3rd. This is our 5-year anniversary. You know, one of the things I would say, like if somebody asks me, what's the difference in the space now versus then? Obviously, we have a lot more people, but at the same time, we have a lot better tools. We have more robust, rigid platforms. You know, back in 2014, if you were to basically say, oh, tomorrow there's going to be even 10 million users that start using the technology and you know, all the blockchains. At the time, the industry couldn't have handled it. There just wasn't the infrastructure in place. You know, and some of the issues we encountered early on that we fixed, you know, in 2014, 2015, if we had a mass flood of users all at once, you know, it would have caused a lot of problems. So, you know, there's still, in some ways, this industry is still in its infancy. We still need to continue developing better tools for end users. There's still a gap between, you know, what's possible and what's actually easy to use and pliable on an everyday basis. But we are getting there. We'll continue to get there. You know, I mean, the internet was developed in 1969, and your average person didn't start using it till 1994, and you know, really, I would say even today, it's still being expanded and improved upon. And, you know, blockchain is an evolution of that. So, well, that's exactly what I was talking about in one of my last podcasts. And I said that I did that with my mother. And so we were going for a walk. We were having a chat. And she was asking how it's going. And I said, we're probably not even at the 1% right now. And she's like, yeah, you've been doing it for, you know, 5 years, right? That's good. That's respectable. I'm like, yeah, that's a surprisingly long time in the industry. And so we basically got talking about how back in the early 90s, we were probably one of the first families that we knew of who was using dial-up broadband, and just how different the whole entire internet space is now. Like the sheer thought that you and I would be able to have a video chat back in the 90s was laughable. You couldn't do that. It was just television that you would have broadcast over the airwaves and nothing else. But back then, she would send an email to like 1, maybe 2 family members, and still write letters to everybody else. Now she doesn't write letters to anybody. We don't post things in the mail because it's so slow and it takes forever. And heck, I don't know people's
snail mail physical address, but I can send them
Yeah.
an email around the world instantly, and that's that's what we do, and it's been that shift over the last. It's taken 20 years, don't get me wrong, but now everybody has an email address or something like that, like so. We are still very much in that early stage, and I guess this is kind of a really nice sort of lead on to where you want to see things going, and specifically where DigiByte is heading in the next, not just 5 years, and not just to 2035, but even beyond that. What do you what are some of the things that excite you the most?
Well, it goes back to kind of the theme, which I think probably a lot of people listening have heard me say before, but cybersecurity. I mean, the internet itself that we use today was never designed to be secure. It was, security was an afterthought. And because of that, that's the reason you have massive amounts of spam and spear phishing emails.
Yeah.
And, a lot of other problems that, let's be honest, like a cyber breach and a data breach doesn't faze people anymore. DigiByte started with the news headline, Target 110 million customers' data stolen, which is funny and ironic because that headline was edited later that night.
Yeah.
So now it says Target 70 million customers' data stolen when you look it up on USA Today's website.
Yeah.
But when I took that headline that morning, it was probably like 7 or 8 o'clock that morning when I hashed it, it was 110 million customers' data stolen. So it kind of proves that, you can't alter and change a blockchain record, even when the newspaper itself alters the headline later on.
It's fantastic. It really, like, you can't write this kind of a story. Like,
yeah, that's why we decided to tag the original journalist in the tweet. See if she would comment on that in any way.
I thought that was great. Yeah. But I mean, some of the other things, I suppose, if we're talking about what we've got coming up, we have very soon we've got AutoCrypt coming up. Do you want to kind of dive a little bit into that?
Yeah, well, for those that might be Star Trekkies out there, if you remember the shape-shifting, what is it, like, not reptilian, but just the shapeshifter in Star Trek. Which one is it?
I think
anyway,
Deep Space Nine. Let me look it up here.
So there's a character named Udo that basically could change himself. And that's basically what this new algorithm does, is it changes itself. It's very brilliant. The engineer and the scientist who actually wrote the code has been helping DigiByte for actually going on 5 years now.
Yeah.
He's been instrumental, and he's done a lot of very genius level stuff in the past. So it was his original idea. And basically the algorithm will change itself every 10 days, and it makes it much harder to create ASICs for. Now we have to do a couple things before we roll that out in a hard fork, soft fork at a certain height, but we have to do some things. So we're going to be here in the next few weeks releasing a new version of DigiByte, and we'll try and get everybody upgraded, and that'll set us up for some pretty significant protocol upgrades heading towards the middle of this year, I would probably say. I hate giving timelines because then everybody just that's one thing I've learned over 5 years is, if you give a specific deadline, people are going to rake you over the coals if you miss it.
Yeah. So
one of the things we've said for a long time is it's better to under-promise and over-deliver than to go out and hype something out. Because that's one of the things I would say, a lot of people don't realize, like, making it 5 years in this industry is pretty incredible. I mean, we're a fraction of a % of the projects that have been launched, started, and flopped and failed. And part of that is because we've been consistent, over the last 5 years. But too often companies and groups and platforms, they'll go up and hype up some new technology when they haven't tested it or proven that it works.
Yep.
And then it just flops and they burn their reputation. So, it's one of the things we want to do is just keep consistent, committed. And at this point in the game, we can't afford to release something that isn't efficient, isn't secure, and doesn't actually work.
Yeah, because we have that reputation on the line. In fact, it's actually kind of funny because I remember when the new website launched back in November, I think, of 2017, one of the things that was on there was basically indicating that the mobile wallets were going to be done by sort of Q4 of 2017. And it's not for lack of trying. It's not for lack of developers or their talent or anything. But especially when we start doing things like we re-architect a lot of the underlying application and then refresh the entire user interface as well, that yeah, giving deadlines and giving it like an ETA on when something's going to happen it's just bad news. It's really just a bad idea.
Well, and to be frankly honest here, with some of the stuff we're doing, this isn't like just building a website or it's trying to hire blockchain developers and talent. You could ask anybody in this industry to find a qualified, capable, competent blockchain developer is like finding a rare panda. Yeah. So it's not something you can just rush out, or you can just go run down the street and hire, a bunch of people. It's a much more, to be able to effectively do it, individuals kind of need to have a conception and understanding of the entire system and all the subsystems, especially at the protocol level. So it's something it's just super hard to rush. And I know a lot of people get frustrated, but the reality is it's only going to happen, especially in a decentralized open source fashion,
And that's the thing is we have our developers, a lot of them just giving up their free time sort of in the evenings and things like that towards the project or on the weekends. I think most of the actual coders, all of them are guys, and so they've got wives or girlfriends who also want, that takes time. You've got to go down to the pub as well and spend some time down there unwinding and relaxing after looking at code all day. So it's a fine balance, right? But I suppose that's probably something worth mentioning with the community is it's not just guys overall, but we have some people like we've got the DigiByte awareness team who are out there, and that's a great mix.
Fantastic group of individuals.
Yeah,
so can't thank them enough.
We've seen some really. Oh, here we go. Even Steven's just gone and put something out there. Big shout out to a bunch of guys. Many of those people are also working away on as part of the DigiByte awareness team. But Steven's doing CoinFest UK, so we'll give him a quick shout out as well. They're coming up in
check
Manchester.
out CoinFest UK. It's going to be a great event.
Yeah.
We should probably take the time. I mean, for all those that are just tuning in and just watching now or watching this on the recorded version later, thank you all for being here. Thank you for supporting DigiByte. Thank you for all your hard work. Without you, the community, this is nothing. I mean, this is about all of us working together. And, there's, hundreds of individuals that have contributed countless hours over the last 5 years to get DigiByte where it is today. And without everyone, there's a handful of developers to this day that still want to remain anonymous, that have contributed fantastic, amazing code. Like, thank you guys. Thank you for everyone. Like the UK event last December was phenomenal. What Steven and Steffi and the team in the UK did was fantastic. So I'm looking forward to this CoinFest UK. I want to thank the DX team for adding us, CoinField for adding us, the Vert-based guys, amazing guys here in the States. You can buy DigiByte with USD. And then, the other exchanges that have been supporting us for years as well. There's what, 80, 90? I can't.
We're over 90 exchanges now globally.
Yeah, it's phenomenal.
We're knocking on the door of 100 pretty closely too. So it's amazing.
Yeah, and we want to thank the other groups that have been building on top of DigiByte as well too. The other platforms. There's just I'm learning stuff. I have to check social media and Twitter to learn what's happening. There's so much to keep up with it. It's amazing. Just to see how fast everything's going. So what other questions do we have here? I guess I was checking Twitter, but I need to
so if we have a look here, besides AutoCrypt, is there any algorithm updates or changes on the roadmap? Well, the roadmap is an interesting kettle of fish there, specifically because as soon as you put something down on a roadmap, most of the time people expect a date for it. And so this is also one of the I suppose, stereotypes that DigiByte has had to break, along with the whole, up until now, white paper and that kind of aspect. Because we are such a decentralized blockchain, if anybody puts something on the roadmap, well, anybody can put something on the roadmap, and it's up to people if they want to develop it. We've even had people asking about making DigiByte a privacy-centric blockchain, to which, sure, put that on the roadmap if you really want, but again, that's also going to be something that it's going to require people to come and build a consensus around implementing. I'm not sure if that's actually going to happen, just by the by, but anyway.
Well, you know, a prime example of the roadmap is like when we were talking in the fall of 2017 about a hard fork in early 2018 to replace a couple of the algorithms.
Yeah.
Well, by the time we got to that point, there was already ASICs commercialized and built for those algorithms.
Yeah.
So for us to go through all the dangers and trouble and work, I mean, because at this point it takes like 6 months from the time you start coding, the time you test, to the time it's actually rolled out and implemented. It's not something you just like turn on overnight. You know, back in the day when our market cap was 60 grand and, you know, we had a few hundred nodes on the network in 2014, sure, it was a lot easier to do. But now you have hundreds of businesses interfacing with the DigiByte blockchain that have to update it. And, you know, trying to get some of these platforms sometimes to update is not an easy task because they have turnover, they have staffing, you know, it's the cogs in the wheel, I guess, start binding. But, you know, for us to go through with that wouldn't have made any sense whatsoever from a security or technical standpoint because it would have given us zero advantage. So that's the problem with trying to mark something out. And one of the things I can tell you after spending 7 years in this industry is it changes quickly, rapidly. You know, what's the new cool thing? What's the new phase? But what we've tried to do is provide solid, reliable, consistent security and stability in the blockchain network. And that's one thing we have been successful at doing.
But I mean, I suppose to kind of add to that as well. So when people say just update and just do a fork and swap out an algorithm, well, the thing even that we found as we went from 6.14 to 6.15 and 6.15.4, there were changes in the underlying API calls and things like that you can make to interface with the DigiByte wallet. And because we were ahead of Bitcoin with implementing these proposed changes, we then had exchanges that are now coming to us going, hey, so this old way of doing things doesn't work, and we need to know how you want us to do it, and how do we implement this now that this particular call is being grandfathered. And so it's not as simple as just, here's a new algorithm and off we go sort of thing, because you've got to, A, get people to upgrade, and B, at the same time, help people with that implementation when they need that kind of help, because that's part of being the community that we are. We don't want to, I suppose, up and leave everybody high and dry, so...
Yeah, and that's something I think we should know here. You know, there's a core group of individuals and developers, sometimes myself, sometimes yourself. You know, even this last week, you know, we were personally sitting there and giving technical help to 3 different platforms and exchanges, and you know, we've probably interacted with almost everyone at some point or another. You know, so that takes a lot of time and energy, and that's something a lot of people don't publicly see. But you know, as a community, we are here supporting and providing, you know, a lot of times technical help to some of these platforms and service providers. And, you know, one of the biggest criticisms that I would probably put on myself is lack of documentation, which I've heard time and time again. You know, which that's something we're working on, and that's something we're gonna, you know, definitely with Digi Assets get out there and have better write-ups, better documentation, better technical stuff. You know, because here I am, I think at this point I've been coding for like 20 years, so to me, I'm like, you know, just read the code. But, you know, that obviously is not a good answer to tell people, you know, so.
But it's obviously hard because and so I suppose that's one of the things that we can get the community involved with is people who are technical documentation writers, or say, for example, some of the stuff that I did, I sat down with Gary for a little while and we got a few things smashed out when it comes to DigiID. That's the kind of thing where if you or he are off developing, that's, you know, one of your core strengths, let's offload that to somebody else who can do that technical documentation and the writing and things like that.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I will admit, I'll be the first one to admit, writing is not my strong suit. So,
except for when it's late night on Twitter.
Yeah, I mean that's why I love all the help that people are putting forward, and what the DigiByte awareness team's doing, and yourself and others. Yeah, we can always use more help. I mean, the reality is anybody can step up and start contributing and start doing things at any point in time. I get people all the time that are asking me permission for stuff. Like, nobody has to ask me permission. You can go out and build your platform on top of DigiByte. You can do whatever you want. Like, I think that's another message. So yeah, I'm seeing some questions about Vesti.
Yeah.
So yeah, we're working on Vesti. We've been working hard. We don't want to give any specific timelines or anything until we're ready. Part of what we're working on in the United States, you're dealing with a very legacy system. So there's a lot of laws, there's a lot of rules, there's a lot of stuff like that. But I will say Digi assets will be used in what we're doing with Vesti. That's one of the reasons behind Vesti is we're trying to show people how you can build a platform that integrates blockchain technology for security, scalability, and a lot of other cool functionalities that can scale. And it can be a commercial product. And so we're positioning it for that to happen. Yeah, you're going to learn more about it. There's going to be more that comes out. So yeah,
it's always difficult though, because like you say, if you say it's coming in a week or something, people are like, yes, it's coming in a week, and you have that. I mean, obviously, because then you don't want to cause any kind of like a pump and dump, but at the same time, it's hard to commit to those kind of dates. Even with things like the DX launch, we saw that get pushed back like a couple weeks, and then a couple weeks, and another week sort of thing. So,
well, it was pushed back, I think, like quite a while, like several months from the original.
Well, I think they were originally going to launch in June or something last year.
Yeah.
But you understand.
Yeah. No, I mean, you'll definitely be hearing more about it. Like I said, in the book, Blockchain 2035, the Digi assets, examples, stuff like that. There's, and then also in the process, we are working on raising fundraising round for Vesti. So that's also part of it. So, and that alone is like a full-time job for anybody who's at a startup out there has done that. So, so we, like I said, we want to encourage everybody that has an idea they want to build with blockchain technology. We encourage you to start coming and helping out. Check out the dev chat. Check out a lot of the repositories. One of the things that frustrates me is, like, besides the whole coin ranking purely based on market cap, is when I see the systems that analyze the number of commits purely to one single GitHub repo.
Oh, it's so stupid.
And they don't realize we basically have like 40 different GitHub repositories now. So it's it's not like we're just maintaining the core protocol. We've got block explorers, exchanges, mobile wallets. We got a bunch of different stuff in libraries, and there's going to be even more for Digi assets when it gets open sourced. So
yeah,
Digi ID, it's an ecosystem, and that's for somebody that's new, I think it's important to understand DigiByte is an ecosystem. Yes, the blockchain is that kind of underlying spinal cord, if you will, for everything else, but there's a lot of stuff that's been tagged along and put on top to help support the network itself.
Yeah.
And that's another thing that people need to understand about future hard forks is when you talk about a hard fork taking 6 months from the actual coding, testing, implementation, and then you got to leave about three months now to get enough stuff to be updated.
Yeah.
Then you have to go and update all the supporting infrastructure.
Yeah.
Block explorers, mining stuff, mobile wallets, other wallets, and then you have to get all the other service providers to update that infrastructure. So, I think it's just important for people to understand and be realistic, moving forward is as things grow and, when the market recovers and you have, billions of dollars on the line, it's, you don't want to mess it up. So.
I mean, it's all very well and good people going, yes, let's go, and we need this new algorithm, but at the same time, don't mess with my money. right?
Right. If it ain't broke, don't fix it. Right. It's a little bit of that going on there. But yes, we want to continually improve and strive for improvement.
I mean, even talking about
So
the mobile applications, they have, I think, like 4 different repositories just between for the mobile apps themselves, because you've got one for Android, you got iOS, you've got translations, and you've got the underlying SPV core. So
yeah.
yeah,
No, and those developers have done a fantastic job. I can't thank them enough. Like we have the best mobile wallet
yeah.
in crypto right now. I mean, if even the Bread Wallet devs not too long ago, they'd reached out and they're like, hey, you know, when I actually had a face-to-face meeting with one of the people on the team, they're like, wow, you guys really improved like stuff. I'm like, yeah, and they're like, well, maybe we could learn some stuff. So, you know, the hats off to GTO and Yoshi and the other guys that have done a phenomenal job with that wallet. And if you haven't tried it out, go to the iTunes store and or the Google Play Store and download it and check it out. Just see how sweet it is. Like over Christmas time, my family and I actually had my nephews and my niece and my even my mom and dad, and we actually played DigiByte poker with it in real time, round to round, just using the mobile wallet. Yeah. That was my way of teaching them and explaining to them, you know, what it is that I've actually been a part of the last 5 years. Because even my parents are still confused sometimes. They're like, what do you do?
You do something in that basement, but we don't know what he does down there. It's actually
right. Yes, for all those that are listening, I still live in my parents' basement.
Yeah.
That's where I work out of.
I suppose so. So talking a little bit more about the mobile wallet. So again, back to the Raspberry Pi. I've been asked a bit about this. What's happening? We are pushing the limitations of a 32-bit architecture. Is the right word. We're pushing the limits of the 32-bit architecture at the moment. Those Raspberry Pis, and now I know that a lot of people are really keen to go and start spinning up some nodes themselves. And just I'll throw this up on screen real quick. There are, like, I've done a bunch of writing for this, so people can see what I've been doing there. It's not like I'm kind of going, no, I haven't touched this. But this is what's actually, this kind of architecture is some of the things that the Android and iOS mobile wallets will interface with in the future to be able to grab their balances, the headers and things like that, and basically use that as genuine supporting infrastructure. So it's on the one hand, yeah, it's cool. I know everybody's super excited to go and spin up the DigiByte core software on a Raspberry Pi. I am too. But like Jared said, our developers are amazing, and they're actually tackling some problems that have not yet been seen by any other UTXO blockchain out there. So we're pushing. Actually, how many blocks have we got at the moment?
Yeah, there's a number of things that we're encountering. Like for instance, the actual like header synchronization, several things that even Bitcoin won't face for a while. But because of our block speed and our block height and the fact that, you know, we're pretty much the longest major blockchain out there now. What do we hit 8 million?
We're really close. I just threw that up on screen really quickly. We're about to hit 8 billion. We're at 7,999,359. So it's probably like an hour or so away.
And actually, that reminds me, we're like 3 minutes out here, I think.
Yeah. So
if you go to DigiExplorer, can you bring that up on there? Just go to DigiExplorer and type block 0. A lot of people don't know that the Genesis block is block 0. It's not actually block 1.
Can you type like block 0?
Yeah, just type block 0.
Really?
Yeah, so
previous block. I'm going to go back one by one over 8 billion of them.
Yeah, so block 0 is actually the Genesis block.
Or if I just search for 0, does that give me it? Yeah,
that's it'll show. It'll show you the block hash, the difficulty, and the whole 9 yards. So
what I can also probably do is go chains. Let's see if I can do this. That's interesting. I won't find it on that one.
Did you go to DigiExplorer?
No, I'm looking. I've also got chains. I was gonna see if I could bring it up and pull out the the Genesis block hash, but the Chain's Blockchain Explorer doesn't actually
Bring it up. Yeah. So even in the
show
core
block
QT
zero.
client, you actually have to, when you go get block info, you actually have to well, you use the hash, but it's actually block 0. When you say get block 0 in the core QT wallet, that's actually how it works. So that's something a lot of people don't know. So the blockchain, basically 5 years ago on this day, here in like about an hour or so, was actually minted. And you know, it was literally the entire blockchain started with that news headline, Target data stolen, you know, from 110 million customers. And so that headline was ran through a SHA-256 hashing function. And that resulting hash is what became the Genesis block hash. And that hash was used to become part of the next block, block 1, which was then hashed, and then so on and so forth. And here we are 5 years later at basically, as of today, we'll be at, that's actually interesting. We're going to hit 8 million in
8 billion.
8 million.
Oh no, sorry, 8 million. Yeah, sorry.
Yeah.
I'm missing
we'll
a couple
hit block 8 million actually on the, we'll hit it today, shouldn't we? Yeah, we'll hit it. That's actually, we'll hit block 8 million on the 5th birthday. So that's pretty, cool. That's pretty fascinating how that timing worked out. Looks like it'll take, what, maybe 12 hours from now?
Yeah, so later on this evening, we'll do it. We'll hit it.
Yeah, we'll hit block 8 million. So, and for those that don't understand, I think Bitcoin is at what, block 400,000 right now?
Yeah, it's pretty low. We've just ticked over, so for me it says 8 a.m. here, but for you, I'm guessing it's probably said it's now, what, midday?
Yeah, it's 1 o'clock. So the
sorry, 1.
Yeah,
we started
so the official launch was at what was it, 12 p.m. Mountain Standard Time.
So happy 5th birthday to DigiByte. It is now 5 years old and coming up on 8 million, not billion, sorry, 8 million blocks. That's quite an accomplishment. What, like, did you think that you would ever kind of get this far back when you were first tinkering around back in 2013?
You know, honestly, the day that we launched, I didn't really know what to expect. You know, part of me was like the whole thing could just flop right on the spot. But, you know, to think, it was just amazing within the first couple of weeks how many people reached out to me from around the world. You know, and here I am in this tiny town in the middle of nowhere in Idaho in my garage working on this. And to know that it would be where it is today, no, I never imagined it. I just figured if it worked, people might want to use it.
Yeah.
So, yeah, that's it's amazing, and I'm looking forward, you know, to the next 20 years, you know, till we hit you know, everything we can do.
Well, I mean, I suppose at the same time, it's not just the next 5 years that we're already looking into, and it's worth kind of mentioning this to people because they kind of, like you talked a bit about what happens when we reach the 2035 and there's no more DigiByte being minted. So it's not just the next 5 years that we've kind of looked at and thought about and wondered about, but it's even further down the line than that. So what happens when we reach, you know, 2050 or 2100, or I think Bitcoin finishes being mined in 2135 or 2130? And so that's some of the things I suppose it's worth mentioning to people is that, yeah, it's not just about like what's happening tomorrow. It's not about 6 months from now, but it is about what's happening a century from now when your kids and your grandkids are all using the DigiByte blockchain together. So, yeah, fascinating stuff to think about for sure.
Yeah, you know, and we'll continue, you know, just, and I would argue, you know, like, just like we've built on the shoulders of giants and pioneers that have come before us, you know, like Satoshi, and Satoshi built on other cryptographers' work from before him. And those cryptographers built on mathematicians' work before them. You know, our goal is to help provide a stable, secure platform so that way the people that come after us and, you know, start coming into this system here over the next 5 years can build on top of the work we've done. You know, and we can continue this, you know, moving forward. So, Yeah. So another question, when's your book coming out? So we're actually hoping to, get it to the editor by the end of January, and then however long the editor takes, and then we get it published. We're probably looking, February. So also, yeah, the Amsterdam Summit coming up in April. For those that don't know, we are having the first ever DigiByte Summit. It'll happen in Amsterdam in April. You can find more information about it, on social media and other stuff, or maybe Josiah can post the link in there.
Yeah, we'll put it down below.
Super excited for that. So yeah, if you haven't, get your tickets up or check it out, as well as the Manchester Coin Fest UK. So somebody asked if I was doing any speaking events. At this point in time, I don't have anything scheduled besides the summit. I'm actually trying to get some work done this spring. Traveling takes a lot of time and energy, and it's also can get expensive too. Yeah. Yeah. Let's see what else.
Were there any questions that people had posted on Twitter? I've kind of mostly just had this up on the screen here, the chat. Go back to that.
I think this is the longest I've ever gone with nobody asking when Binance.
Yeah.
So
I'm glad that that's kind of the narrative around the need for it has slowly changed. Actually, I think of the top 100, or certainly the top 50, we're the only one who's not on there. It was interesting. I was having a chat with Kanan. He was also in the chat from Vertcoin, and we were talking a little bit about how they had also had similar kind of, when is it happening, guys? And yeah, let's not go any further before we get salty about it.
So I had a question about Mimblewimble and confidential transactions. Yes, I've heard about it. I mean, I read the proposal when it first came out in 2015. For those, on the privacy side and security side, I've always been intrigued by the cryptographic advances of whether it's ring signatures, like what you see in Monero,
yep.
Zero knowledge proofs, like what you see in Zcash, or, Mimblewimble. But one of the things that people don't quite understand, when you talk about introducing some of these features over the entire system, you actually lose some of the ability for the whole audit, transparency, and record keeping functionality that the blockchain proves. And so some of the applications for like supply chains, records, stuff like that, you actually don't necessarily want that, but it is possible to have those privacy features and the other stuff in there simultaneously. Just like right now, you can send a SegWit transaction separate than a normal transaction. So in the future, I mean, I, for one, am not opposed to incorporating some of these features of cryptography. I do think what you see, though, is you'll see some of this stuff hyped up and recycled.
Yeah.
And you actually see these phases happen over the last 5 years. It's like, what's the newest, hottest thing? And a lot of times it's something that's already been done and proven and put out there years ago. Even ICOs were actually happening back in 2014. They just weren't called ICOs back then.
Yeah.
But there was a phase back then when these I can't remember what they were calling them. There was a different term they were using. So it's like everybody back in 2014 went through this phase where they wanted to have pegged currencies. Now they call them stable coins.
Yeah.
So you see a lot of these same ideas. They start getting rehashed.
Yep.
So, I mean, it's improvable, but it's one of those things for us to, it goes back to what we were saying earlier, for us to do some significant overhauls of the protocol without inducing security vulnerabilities is a major concern. And then just the time frame it takes to update and include stuff.
Yeah.
It's not something you can just roll out. And let's be honest, there's major issues happening to other platforms that are not very, they're not really being talked about.
Yeah.
Like some of the memory and RAM problems and requirements that, certain projects are running into that just can't scale. You
I
know,
think some of
or
them need like 90 or 100 gigs. They're like, this is the minimum requirements. You must have at least 192 gigs on your server because we're already at like 90 gigs worth. And I'm
yeah,
like,
the architecture is just not there. And then you
it's
also have like
insane.
complete centralization of some other projects.
Yep.
But anyway, I don't want to turn this into like a bashing other projects, but there are, you know, a lot of technical hurdles that other projects are starting to run into. And we want to make sure that we don't introduce some of those vulnerabilities. So,
It's really interesting, and I guess that kind of comes back to the memory improvements that some of the devs have been working on and things, and why it's important at the same time as well, and why you can't rush that kind of brilliance, I suppose, because what they're doing is some pretty major changes, but it is going to further optimize it and ensure that even though we are growing now to 8 million blocks, that you can still run it on commodity hardware.
yeah. Yeah. So another great question. With IBM showing off commercially available quantum computer, what needs to be done to ensure DigiByte is quantum resistant? So this is actually something we're diving into in the book, something that super fascinates me because, you know, when you start talking about quantum computing, everything around us basically becomes obsolete, right? Everything we've learned. I feel like we are a long ways off. If you look at like this new commercial IBM quantum computer that was just released, it's 20 qubits, I think, is the power. Your desktop computer or your laptop is way more powerful and capable than this quantum computer that they commercially released. And the fact is, as far as I understand, you don't even actually have the ability to physically get this quantum computer because of the housing requirements. You have to have...
It's gotta be like chilled and stuff, doesn't it?
Yeah, it's gotta be super cooled, right? And the slightest vibration or movement completely throws off the processor. So the main commercial viability of that quantum computer is actually for research and testing, because they're saying that yes, it's not that powerful. It can't even compete with your laptop. But a lot of times what's happening right now with quantum research is, you know, they'll spend weeks or months trying to get the right environment in order to allow the qubit processors to function. And you know, a slight vibration or movement or temperature change throws it off and completely screws it up. And then so the researchers lose weeks of downtime. So IBM
it can literally be a truck driving down like 2 blocks over that'll completely throw it.
Yeah, it'll hose it. So yeah, we're a long way off from, you know, and let's be honest, the first quantum computers that might be able to crack like a SHA-256, you know, or digital signature, you know, it's going to be on like a $50 or $100 million computer. So, and it's going to be a government, and they're probably going to be targeting other things. So yeah, we're a long way off from it, but it is something to think about. And it is a fascinating area. So, yeah, any other questions that anybody has? They're posting in here. Another question, 560 transactions to 1120, that'll occur after the next hard fork. So, we need to tweak some things with that. But yeah, right now we're about 560 transactions per second. But that depends on how you define transactions per second.
Yeah. Right? Is it SigWit? Is it not SigWit? Is it the weighting and
right?
How big is it?
And then also like what you're considering a transaction. Because in the case of DigiAssets, if you're just simply authenticating, you know, like a password, or if you're authenticating like a login or something like that, right now we can actually scale infinite. Like there is no limit, because you're just talking about digital signatures processed, you know, locally. So, you know, that kind of needs being developed. So,
well, it's been great for us for a little while, and I sort of almost feel like the community is starting to grow past it now, because yeah, it's great that we can do that much. Yeah, it's unfortunate that other blockchains are so much slower and it's so much more limited. But we're kind of getting to that point now where the raw number itself is semi-irrelevant, because we are just basically going to grow with Moore's law. And so I think on the one hand, yeah, it's great that we can send those transactions, but we've got the planning in place to scale to be a global blockchain that has support for 7-8 billion people and into the future 10 billion people. So personally, I'm kind of at the stage now where the actual transactions per second is becoming less and less relevant to me.
Well, yeah, I mean, we haven't even came anywhere close maxing out our utilization now.
Yeah.
So, we could get out there and say, yeah, 20,000, 30,000 transactions per second. But the reality is you got to look at actually how it's being used right now. We've got a lot of room to grow. And that's where focusing our effort and energy on building real world applications that use it. And let's be honest, if these applications are architected properly, they're not going to require as many on-chain full transactions. And that's kind of the gist and what we want to get across to people when we explain digi-assets and other stuff. Because one of the problems with Ethereum is every step in your program requires, Ether. So if Josiah says hello, then, send 5 DigiBytes to Jared, and then send 5 DigiBytes, to Rudy. Every step in that process on Ethereum requires additional Ether and computational transactions. So it just doesn't scale very well in the way that it's procedure. So that's why if we can actually have like a more Turing complete system that doesn't require all that overhead, it's huge advancement on top of some of the other systems that are out there right now.
There's certainly both bandwidth and drive space benefits to being a lot simpler, to not being completely Turing complete, I suppose. So yeah, there's definitely, like, don't get me wrong, there are certainly use cases for Ethereum and for having that additional computing language over and above the smart contracts that you can do with DigiByte. But at the same time, with the DigiByte script language, there are so many possibilities, especially as we start to bring digi-assets out, and especially I think what a lot of people are going to see throughout specifically 2019 now as we start looking into that is we've got the implementation of DigiID into the Coinomi wallet, for example, is coming soon. We've been working with their team on that. We're going to start seeing it showing up in other places like exchanges. We're going to see digi-assets launched, and because of the accessibility of digi-assets, it's going to be huge compared to having to have like a science degree to write like compared to an Ethereum smart contract. The ability to do and use these digi-assets is going to be for everybody, really, from your cell phone, from your desktop computer, and you're not going to have to be a rocket scientist to make these things. So that's going to be really cool. I'm so excited for that.
It's beer time in Germany. I just read that. I love that.
Yeah.
Sorry. I'll have to get a celebratory beer later.
It's 8 o'clock, so I can't start drinking yet. I've got to go off to work in like half an hour, so.
Once again, I want to thank everybody that's listening in and it's watching this. I know looks like we've gone over an hour now. It's been incredible. I mean, I'm super excited for 2019. Digi-assets, the book, working on Blockchain 2035, Vesti, all the new platforms, groups, exchanges, services, DigiCafe. There's a lot of cool stuff happening, and I just want to encourage people to keep going and keep working. And there was a couple questions, about price. And for those that have known me, like that's one thing that I've never done is given price predictions over the last 5 years because 1, I'm not good at it. 2, I know that if we keep moving forward and we keep going, it's going to happen. The reality is we have a limited, finite asset. There's only so many DigiBytes in the world, only so many that'll be produced. I can't change that. Nobody can change that. It's the laws of mathematics. As DigiByte grows, more people come into the ecosystem, that's naturally going to fix itself. But that's not really our focus. Obviously, it's important for markets, liquidity. But if we focus on real technology and real results, the rest will come. And, DigiByte in 2017, from January to December, had a 30,000% increase. It's more than Bitcoin. It was wild. But if you look at the since the beginning, our market cap was basically worthless. For a system back in 2014 and in 2015, 2016. We've seen bear markets back then much worse than it is now. Yeah. I'm not saying that it's not, something people can't be concerned about, but This is temporary. The markets will recover. People also need to understand there's a lot of manipulation. You basically have completely unregulated markets. You have exchanges posting completely fake trade volume and data,
Yes.
Especially ones located in unregulated jurisdictions. So, you got to put it in perspective. You got to kind of put it through a lens and realize that, yes, there is still some fraud out there and some scams. And the one good thing about this recession and this bear market we've hit is it has cleaned a lot of crap out of the ecosystem, and that kind of needed to happen. But for those that haven't seen the image going around on Twitter, if you look at the .com bubble, Amazon crashed 97%, 98%. But obviously look at Amazon now. So, we know where we're positioned to become one of the heavyweights moving forward, the next 5-10 years. There's no doubt about it. There's no doubt in my mind. Yep. That's why I'm committed as ever and dedicated as ever and excited for 2019. Because like I said, we got a lot of cool stuff.
Yeah, man.
And we've got an amazing community. We have the best community in the crypto world. And, I urge people just to remain positive, keep moving forward and working hard, and we'll get there. So,
yeah. I mean, the bear market has certainly been interesting. It's not even 12 months ago that BitConnect was still a thing that people were believing in. That was less than 12 months ago. I still can't believe that. I was watching some videos.
Stuff like that. When I first came across it, I was baffled. I'm like, what? And then, some of this other stuff, and then some of the things I've seen marketed as a blockchain. I'm like, what? This is, and the
you can't be a blockchain if you're missing 30,000 blocks. That's not how this works.
Right. No, I mean, a lot of it's, the term can be perverted and abused, right? And misused. So that's something people need to do their own research. And I mean, and let's be honest, like I see some of this stuff every once in a while. I would actually say there's way more positivity now than there was, 3 or 4 years ago or 2 or 3 years ago. I think people overall have gotten smarter, but understand there are trolls out there that will intentionally say stuff just to get a rise out of people. And the dead giveaway is when you look at their account and they have 0 followers and it's a brand new account and they've never tweeted. Like obviously they're trolling.
Yeah.
So.
But it's difficult, and I also want to encourage our community as well to basically to be the community that you want us to see, and to greet people warmly when it comes to this kind of thing. Don't presume, obviously, that everybody is a troll, but there are certainly ones out there. But if people are asking genuine questions, even if they're hard-hitting questions, take a genuine response to answering them. And I think it's a good opportunity both for you to grow, for the other person to learn, and for the whole entire DigiByte ecosystem as well to even acknowledge some of our own pain points, but to improve upon them. And I think that's something that we've done really well. Based on our last 5 years worth of history, is we've improved upon those pain points. So it's not anything that we need to shy away from. This is, if anything, it's positive because we can identify them. Things like we had a slow sync on our core wallet that we improved from 6.14 to 6.16. It was a pain point, and that was something that people were identifying, and it got improved upon. And it's what would previously take a week or something to sync got down to several hours. So
yeah,
it's totally fine to kind of, I suppose, bring that sort of thing to light. Do it with as cheesy as it sounds, do it with a positive attitude. And honestly, that's infectious. And I'm really proud of our community on social media for the most part, even including Reddit. It's actually a pretty good community with some great positivity. We're really welcoming. And so I wanna thank the community for that. It's great.
Yeah, no, and that's probably a good place to head off here because we
wrap this up.
Yeah, we've been going a little while. So awesome. The community is amazing. Thank you all. Thank everybody watching right now. And once again, thank you everybody that, watches this later. Here we are 5 years later. We've said it over and over again. We're here committed, consistent for the long term. Yes, we're in a bear market, but, eventually things will get better. And all we can do is, and these things are outside of our control. It's the broader ecosystem. So we just keep putting one foot in front of the other and keep moving along. We're going to get there. So, you know, and like I said, we warmly welcome if anybody's new, you know, welcome to the community. And don't be afraid to ask questions. There's no such thing as a dumb blockchain question, except for when Lambo, like that one probably.
When
or when
Moon is
Binance,
acceptable, when Lambo is not, right? Like we've established.
Yeah.
It's we've all got to start somewhere. We've all got to learn somewhere, and hopefully, if people learn a bit, they'll stick around. They'll like I ended up doing. Answer some extra questions that other people have once you've learned the answer yourself. And together, the community will grow, and that's fantastic.
Rudy says, "Win Volkswagen."
Yeah. I think that's probably a really good place for us to leave that. So thank you so much for joining me today. Thank you to our community. This has been 5 years. Hey, we've got Crypto Bantam. Go there. They've actually got some cool merch to celebrate our 5-year anniversary. Check them out. Again, we've also got the upcoming events and things like that as well, which I'll put some links to in the description down below later on. That we've got Steven and Steffi are organizing. Thank you again to all of our supporters, to our developers, to the DigiByte awareness team. Thank you again to Jared for starting this project off 5 years ago. What a ride it's been, and what a ride it's going to continue to be.
Yeah, it's been a wild ride. And so, real quick, where did you say crypto clothing is? Because I don't know if I should admit this on live stream, but I actually do not have a single. Okay, that's not true. I did get a DigiByte polo in the UK, but I don't have any more DigiByte shirts or swag. And it's something that we've talked about for a long time, and I just want to know like where I should go buy one.
Yep.
That accepts DigiByte.
Check out Crypto Bantam. I mean, so like we've got things like we can even there's stickers and stuff. I'm sure you've also seen some of these. Like we've got the poker chips.
Yeah.
There's the backpack as well back there. So
I do have some cryptos, some socks, some DigiByte cryptos. They're awesome. Wore them on Christmas.
Yeah, nice. Yeah. For the record as well, I buy all of these myself, so it's not like I'm being paid to shill someone's product, but I love the stuff that the community's come out with, and I love like the stickers. Double T's in here. He's got himself some big like 35-inch stickers on the side of his truck that he drives around with. Hell, we've got Steven, and he's got a freaking bus. I think he wins there.
Yeah, it's awesome. It's awesome.
Yeah, so check them out, Crypto Bantam. They do some really cool stuff. Their merch is great. You'll have seen me wearing the Venezuela tees and things as well. I also got them from there. Cryptos are great for the socks. And as far as I'm aware, they all take DigiByte. So yeah, that's really cool.
Yeah, no, I'm gonna have to go check that out right now and make some orders here. So
we'll leave it at that. Thank you so much for the stream. Thank you everybody for joining us. Feel free to share this around. Share it with your friends, your family, the strangers who you want to tell a little bit about DigiByte that we've been doing for 5 years now, where we're heading and things. And we'll catch you on the next one.
Yeah, we'll see you guys. Take care.